I'm not a psychic or anything, but I'm willing to bet that your social media, like mine, is filled with dance content. That algorithm, she is smart and she knows exactly what you want to see. So one day, like any other day, I'm scrolling social media, Instagram in this case to be specific, and it's dance, 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 and all of a sudden, one video makes me, as they say, stop the scroll. I'm transfixed. It seems to be a variety show from maybe the early 80s, just kind of had that vibe, that style. And I immediately see Debbie Allen. And this helps me place the era, because she's quite young and she's taking the lead and there are dancers behind her. And it's just so fun and great choreography, great energy. And then I see that, wait, there are a few other dancers like Debbie taking the lead, including this one guy. And all of a sudden, I can't stop watching him. He was so smooth and graceful and had that sort of, I think, innate musicality on top of incredible technique. And I'm like, who is this guy? And so I go read the caption and nothing. And I'm like, what? So I think I even left a comment like, help, somebody tell me, who is this guy? What is this show? But I have no patience. So I run to Google and I'm just sleuthing, doing my thing. And somehow, by the grace of my amazing detective skills, I find the variety show and then discover the name of this guy. So then I Google him and I'm immediately embarrassed and shocked because he's a legend and I had never heard of him. He was born in Pennsylvania, the son of a shipyard worker and a waitress. Not exactly the expected start for a future dance legend. His mother enrolled him in dance classes early on. By the time he graduated high school, his dance teacher urged him to go to New York. And so, at just 18, he arrived in the city, hungry to prove himself. Within just 2 years, he did. It was 1957, and Broadway was about to change forever. A new kind of musical was about to open, one where dance wasn't just entertainment. It was the storytelling. West Side Story. He auditioned and got the job, starting as an understudy for the shark roles of Pepe and Nibbles. Later, he stepped into the roles of Arab, Pepe, and Nibbles as a replacement. Fully immersed in the groundbreaking movement style of Jerome Robbins, he became deeply connected to the show. He absorbed everything. Every detail of Jerome Robbins' choreography, every nuance in the movement, every trick of staging. And when Robbins needed someone to restage West Side Story in the years that followed, he called the one person he trusted most. Meaning, if you've seen West Side Story performed live in the latter half of the 20th century, there's a good chance you were watching a version that our guy had a hand in restaging, or that was influenced by his work in preserving Robbins' choreography. But dance friends, this was all just the beginning. At some point in those early years in New York, he met a comedian named Mel Brooks. Brooks wasn't yet the Hollywood powerhouse he would become, but he was already bursting with ideas. They met socially at parties through mutual friends, and when Brooks described the kind of choreography he envisioned for a scene in his new film, this young dancer turned choreographer had some thoughts of his own. Brooks had already hired another choreographer, but when that fell through, he turned to the man he'd been bouncing ideas off for months, the one who understood not just dance, but movement as comedy. The movie, The Producers, the scene, Springtime for Hitler. The number had one goal: to be so over the top, so outlandish that audiences wouldn't know whether to gasp or laugh. Feathered showgirls and swastikas, marching dancers high-kicking in unison, the most absurd, tasteless, and spectacular sequence ever filmed. And it was his job to choreograph it. If you think that's an odd gig for a Broadway-trained dancer with a Robbins pedigree, just wait, because that movie launched a decades-long partnership. From Blazing Saddles to Young Frankenstein, from History of the World Part 1 to Be or Not to Be, he became Mel Brooks' go-to choreographer. The man who made Gene Wilder and Peter Boyle tap dance and Puttin' on the Ritz, the mastermind behind Dom DeLuise's ridiculous yet perfectly timed soft shoe in The French Mistake. It takes a very specific talent to make dance funny. Only a few ever master it, and he had it. But comedy wasn't all he did. His influence extended far beyond the world of Mel Brooks. He brought the Robbins style to mainstream audiences with a West Side Story-inspired commercial for The Gap, earning an American Choreography Award. He won Emmys for choreographing TV specials with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. He choreographed the Tonys, the Oscars, the Grammys. If it had dance and it had style, there was a good chance this guy was behind it. A dancer, a director, a choreographer, a guardian of movement history. And yet, he never sought the spotlight. His name wasn't on marquees. His face wasn't famous. But his work was unforgettable. The dancers who performed his numbers felt it. The audiences, like me on Instagram, who have been moved to laughter, joy, or even tears because of his dancing or choreography, felt it. His name, Alan Johnson. And now you know the rest of the story. All right, dance fam, be honest. Had you heard of Alan Johnson? Maybe it's an age thing, a generational thing. I like to pride myself on knowing those way before my time. And like I said at the beginning, I was a little mortified that this guy was so influential in the world of choreography, and I hadn't heard of him. I didn't give my usual intro on this podcast. I wanted to get right into my story. So, hi, my name is Miller Daurey. I'm the host of Hey Dancer and this weekly series called The Rest of the Story, where I introduce to you dance legends, icons, and moments in dance history you maybe know already but don't know enough of, or maybe you didn't ever hear about, like me with Alan Johnson. If you enjoyed the episode, I always love it if you share with your dance fam, and also take a moment to review and rate, follow, subscribe, like it on YouTube, comment on Spotify or YouTube, or review it, on Apple, all the things. It really does help a podcaster out. I might suggest, if you're only listening to the podcast, to check it out on YouTube. That link will be in the show notes in the episode description, because, to watch this guy dance is just so cool. And you get to see the original variety show where I first discovered him and what was ultimately the impetus for this podcast. I also want to say, if you don't know, how unbelievably crucial it is to restage a show. If we keep changing the choreography and staging of, in this case, West Side Story, to fit modern trends, at some point, we're just left with the name. The original vision, the movement, the storytelling through dance just fades away. But because of Alan Johnson, that didn't happen. His dedication to keeping the choreography alive means audiences today can still see West Side Story the way it was meant to be. While the list of dance greats is infinite, from, dancers to choreographers and moments in dance history, and I could probably spend the rest of my life doing this weekly series and still not cover, 1% of all the dance greats out there. If you have anyone you love, I'm open to suggestions, and, I'll take your recommendation, and if I'm inspired by that person or that particular moment in history, then I'd be happy to shout you out and do an episode on that. So hit me up, Instagram at @BackToGreat. Leave a comment maybe if you're watching on a platform that allows comments. And that's all I got for this week. I'll see you next time.